Hello, everyone. I'm Zach Brown. While you are listening to this, I'm on junior retreat. So instead of making Timmy go through the entire slideshow by himself, I just decided I'd make a YouTube video so that way I could go through the slides that I made and I know a little bit more about. I'm going to be going over Bartholomew Diaz's life, and Timmy will be going over his voyages and their impact. So before I go over anything, please put a massive asterisk to literally everything about his life. All the first-hand and probably second and third-hand accounts were all burned in a massive fire. So this information came like 300 years after the fact. But anyway, to the best of our knowledge, his family was pretty well known. He is in some way, shape, or form related to Dennis Diaz, who was an explorer, who had sailed around the African coast, the West African coast, around like Guyana, current-day Nigeria, Cameroon, and had discovered the Cape Verde Peninsula. Diaz was born in Portugal. He was Portuguese and was born around 1455. Not much is known about his early life other than he was a modest, low-ranking squire of a royal household or high noble household. So he was not the lowest of the low, but he wasn't very high up on the totem pole, but he was better than most people, actually. Life before the voyage, not much is known, but he had a good amount of experience at sea. He likely traded ivory along the Guyana coast from 1478 to 1481. He likely worked with fellow explorer Diogo de Anzabuja on his expedition to create the fortress of São Jorge da Mina on the Gulf of Guiana, which is the fortress pictured above. It's possible he also accompanied Diego Chao on his expedition to the Congo River, so he was very well traveled throughout Africa. This picture here is of King John II of Portugal, the great sort of explorer. He had funded two failed expeditions by Diaz Chao, and so he sent Bartholomew Diaz, who was likely his underling, to go and find the southern tip of Africa because Chao had so far failed, and he replaced Diaz with the Diaz. He was the one who funded it, gave him all the supplies, all the ships and everything. But why? Well, he wanted to find Prester John, as shown in the picture. So, Prester John was this, like, mythical Christian king in this far-off land, and he was supposed to be powerful. Some people said he was Indian, some said he was East African. The king of Ethiopia at the time was not Prester John, but pretty much everyone in Europe did. And they wanted to find him, and that's why they sent Diaz. You could also say to sidestep the taxes that the Ottomans put on spices and find a direct route to India as well. Diaz set sail with two caravels with 50 tons of supplies, and some well-known sailors such as João de Santiago. A lot of people that went on his expedition were well-traveled and well-known sailors at the time, so he had a lot of experience around him. So now Timmy should be telling you about the voyage, but unfortunately, I have my retreat. So we're just going to go and skip to his personal life and death, and then Timmy can tell you about the voyages. So he was the superintendent of royal warehouses from 1494 to 1497. Pretty much gave him like some sort of like ranking at court because he was a advisor of King John II, and he kind of helped him around. He was a big supporter of him, and he helped plan a few expeditions, especially Da Gama's expedition, where he actually designed the ships that were later used in that. He had a wife and was married, but the wife's name is never mentioned. But he had two sons, Simeão Diaz and Antonio Diaz. And his grandson, Paulo Diaz, became the first governor, or at least first named governor, of Portuguese Angola. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, he dies. In May 1500, around the Cape of Good Hope, his ship capsized and sunk, and he died with the rest of his crew while on a trip that was with Da Gama. And that is the end of his story. Over to you, Timmy, to tell about his voyages and their impact.